Hey, it's Jonathan McGinley, a Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer, and the founder of Intentional Man, a company that exists to equip Christian men to live highly intentional lives and pursue their God sized dreams and passions. And I want you to imagine for a minute a life where you're consistently living in alignment with who you want to be, a life where you're consistently investing in the things that matter to you, a life where you're consistently doing the things that are truly going to move the needle in your life, the activities that actually get you closer to your goals and to your dreams. Take time to imagine that life. Today, I want to help you gain clarity on what's important to you and how to actually spend time on those things. I want to help you gain control over your schedule and your time and get you out of that constant crisis management mode that we all seem to fall into oftentimes. Almost any time that I ask somebody, it seems like in life recently, how they're doing or how things are going, the answer is almost always busy, slammed, can't seem to get caught up, right? I'm sure you felt like that or you're currently feeling that way. With a lot of guys that I've been working with, this has been a theme of just this feeling of overwhelm, like their schedule's out of control, that there's too much to do and not enough time, that we're constantly feeling behind. And I've felt like that a lot this year. I've been juggling a handful of different jobs and responsibilities. I started a new role as a men's director at a church at the beginning of this year and added that into an already busy schedule. And so I've felt this. Too busy, not enough time. And when I first took that job as the men's director at this church at the beginning of the year, I felt like I kept getting to the end of the week and just looking back and being like, man, I did not make significant progress on some of the things that were the most important things to me. And, you get to the end of the week and you look back and say, I didn't do the needle moving activities. I didn't hit this goal. I don't know where the time went. And so since then, I really have gone on a pretty intense journey to just figure out ways to organize and execute my schedule better and to actually make sure I'm spending time on the things that are most important to me. So I wanted to share just some of that with you today to help you do the same. But to get started, I want to ask you a couple of questions just right up front here. So what is one thing you could do, and this is something that you're not doing now, one thing you could do that if you did it on a regular basis, it would make a tremendous positive difference in your personal life? Think about your personal life. What's one thing that you could do that if you did it on a regular basis, it would make a positive, tremendous impact in your personal life? Okay, and then the second one is the same question, but in your business or professional life. What's one thing that you could do in your business or professional life that would make a tremendous positive difference in your life? Okay, if you need some time to pause the video and think about it, go ahead and do that now. But resume this thing when you're ready to go with your answers. So if you got your answers, we're going to come back to those a little bit later. But make sure you're kind of holding on to those, thinking through those. So there are typically 4 ways in which you spend your time. And there's 2 factors that define the activity and how we spend our time. So it's urgent and important. Those are the 2 factors that usually define how we spend our time, urgent and important. But the 4 ways then, when we combine those 2 together, that we spend our time is on, number 1 is urgent, important tasks. Number 2 would be the non-urgent but important tasks. 3 would be urgent but non-important. And then the last would be non-urgent, not important. The ultimate time wasters. Non-urgent, not important. So urgent, when I'm talking about urgent, it means that it requires immediate attention, right? That's pretty obvious. Urgent things usually act on us. These are the things like the phone ringing, a Slack message coming in, someone walking into your office and asking you to do something. They're usually right there in front of us, and so we act on it immediately. But just because it's urgent doesn't mean it's always important. And then importance, this has to do with actual results. So things that actually contribute to your mission, they contribute to your values, your goals. These are the things that do truly move the needle in our lives. They're usually the activities that have the biggest impact. So where we typically react to urgent matters, we usually have to act. We have to be proactive on the important things, right? So if you can picture a chart with 4 different squares, the top left or quadrant 1, this would be where your urgent and important tasks fall into. Urgent and important. And so I'm talking about things like the major fires at work. I'm talking about health complications that require immediate attention, or relational issues that have become extremely urgent, or you get a call from your boss, or you get a call from your client with a super pressing issue. So we all can kind of picture some of those in our lives where it's urgent and it's important. We have to deal with it right away. We all have some of these things in our lives. They're pretty unavoidable, some of these things. But here's the deal with quadrant one. If you only focus on the activities that are urgent and important, usually that quadrant, the activities there just tend to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it completely controls you. Then when you do have a break, you're so stressed out that you retreat to the non-urgent and the non-important activities because you're burnt out and you just want something easy to take your mind off of things. But here's the deal. If we spend too much time working on only urgent and important matters, you're going to start to feel a lot of stress, right? Usually those urgent, important things are stressful. And if you spend too much time there, you're going to burn out. You're going to feel like you're just in constant crisis management mode all the time, just putting out fires and constantly feeling behind. Like the people I'm talking about when I ask them how they're doing. Most likely they're spending a lot of time here in quadrant one. So I'm sure you've had seasons where you felt like that, where it's like, man, I just have urgent, important things and that's it. So that's quadrant one. Quadrant three, this is where I find myself way too often. And I think a lot of you can probably relate and find ourselves here in quadrant three a lot of times. And this is where you would spend the majority of your time on things that are urgent, but they're not important. Urgent, but not important. They feel important because they're urgent, but ultimately these activities don't really actually move the needle in your life, or they usually don't line up with what we say is important to us. They're usually not our top priorities. So usually these tasks are based on other people, the priorities and expectations of other people. What I mean by that is their emails. Somebody sends us an email with their agenda, and we feel like it's urgent that we have to react to it right away. It can be a phone call that comes in or a text message. It can be meetings. These are other people's agendas a lot of times that come into our lives, and they feel urgent because the people are giving it to us, and it feels urgent in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily make it important. I'm sure if you think through your life, you can find times where you're spending a lot of your time, a lot of your day working on these things, the urgent, non-important. But here's the thing. If you spend too much time in this quadrant, it's going to lead to a lot of that crisis management, short-term focus. You're going to feel out of control. You're going to feel stressed out. You're going to feel like you're busy, but you're going to get to the end of the week and not feel productive. So, and with relationships, you might have more shallow relationships. Your life's just going to feel out of balance if you spend too much time in quadrant three here. Does that sound familiar? I've been there way too often, right? It's easy to fall into this area because we typically do react to the urgent things in our life first, even if they aren't actually important to our life mission or goals. So that's quadrant three. Then quadrant four, this is where you're spending time on things that aren't urgent and they aren't important, right? This is a quadrant we do not want to spend much time in. This would be things like social media, hate to say it, the news, busy work at the office, or just other time-wasting activities. I'm sure you can think of some of those in your life. Non-urgent, non-important things. If you're spending a lot of time here, you're pretty much wasting your time on things that aren't helping move your life forward. Too much time here is going to cause you to be more ineffective. You're going to feel uninspired. It usually leads to a lot of passivity or apathy, a lack of purpose or passion, where you feel a lot of dependency on others. And you're very rarely going to hit your goals or have meaningful pursuits if you spend too much time in quadrant four. So those are three of the four quadrants. You can tell I left out quadrant two. So let's talk about that one. This is one I really want to discuss today. And this is the non-urgent, but the important activities. So these would be things like spending intentional time on your relationships, planning, dreaming, goal setting, time developing processes and systems and structures that are going to help you in the future. Be investing in your health. So these are all the things that we know we need to do, but we often actually never get to them because they're not urgent, right? But these are the things that do usually truly move the needle in our lives. These are usually the things that give us the biggest results. These are the things that foster great relationships and help us live in alignment with our core values and our mission and our purpose. And so we're always going to have things in quadrant 1 that we have to attend to. But if you actually place enough emphasis on quadrant 2 activities, these non-urgent important things, it usually starts to minimize and prevent things from appearing in quadrant 1, right? Because if you take time to develop good systems, they can prevent some fires from happening. If you take time to get clarity on your mission statement, your goals, and your vision for your life, then you're going to end up minimizing health issues, financial issues, relational issues. So think back now on that question, those questions that I asked you at the beginning of this training. What one thing could you do that if you did it on a regular basis, it would make a tremendous positive difference in your personal life? And the other was, what one thing could you do in your career that would make a tremendous positive difference? So think of those answers. What quadrant does that activity fall into? Most likely, almost 95% of the time, it falls in quadrant 2, the non-urgent but important things. But if you haven't been doing it, or you haven't been doing it consistently, it's because it's not urgent, right? So when I asked you that, I said, what would make a tremendous positive difference in your life? And these were the things that you came up with, most likely in quadrant 2. If you would actually start to focus more on these non-urgent and important activities, it could have a profound impact on the different areas of your life. We live in a world that's driven by instant gratification, right? We want results immediately from the things that we do. So it can be difficult to spend enough time on some of the things like planning and goal setting and dreaming that don't give us those instant results. But these activities are absolutely vital to your success. Ask anyone who's successful or anyone that you look up to. They spend time getting clear on what they want to be about, on what they want to do. They get clear on the plan and the strategy, right? They develop systems and processes. It can be really easy to keep ignoring your health, thinking that you're going to get to it one day. But in reality, if you don't make time for it now, you're probably not going to make time for it in the future. That relationship that you know you need to invest more time and energy in, it's not going to just magically get better. You must make time for it now. You must devote energy to it now. You must be proactive and setting aside time on your schedule to actually do it. And one of the things that I see the most with men that I work with, and honestly, oftentimes in my life, is that we as men are pretty good at responding to things when they become urgent, right? When your marriage is on the rocks, you usually kick it into a higher gear. When your health becomes more of a serious issue, then we usually finally have incentive to work out and to eat healthier. When your business is failing, you finally start to do the necessary things and make the necessary sacrifices it takes to turn things around. When you're in a financial crisis, you find ways to make supplemental income, to do anything that it takes to get you to a better spot. But this is not usually a good way to live. We have to find times to prioritize the important but non-urgent things in our lives now, so that we can prevent those things from happening, so that we're not always in crisis management mode. So don't wait for your marriage to fall apart before you become intentional. Don't wait for a health scare before you finally start getting better sleep and working out and eating healthier. Don't wait until you feel like you finally have time to pursue your dream. Start pursuing it now. If you only focus on things that are urgent in your life, you're always going to feel behind. You're going to miss out on some of the most important things in your life. You're going to eventually burn out from stress. So you must designate time in your schedule to work on those non-important or non-urgent but important things in your life, because they're ultimately going to free you from a lot of the stress you've been feeling. They're going to help you avoid fires, and they're going to help you pursue the life that you've wanted, the life that you dream of. And the only place to get time for these quadrant 2 activities is from quadrants 3 and 4 up front, because you can't ignore quadrant 1 activities. They're urgent and important, but you must also fight to do more quadrant 2 activities that are ultimately going to minimize how many activities you have in quadrant 1. So in order to say yes to quadrant 2 activities, you're going to have to say no to some things, right? You have to decide what your true priorities are and be able to say no to some things that don't necessarily fall in line with your priorities. Remember, every time you say yes to something, you are also saying no to something else. So you might think that taking that one meeting isn't a big deal, but ultimately you're saying no to time that could be spent on some quadrant 2 things. You might think that just texting or checking social media or looking at the news all day long isn't too big of a deal. But ultimately, if you are doing those things, you are taking away time that could be spent on more important things. So you have to decide if it's worth the trade. The best way to organize your life around quadrant 2 activities, I believe, is to organize your life on a weekly basis. A weekly basis. So you can still adapt and prioritize on a daily basis, but planning out your main roles, your goals, and your priorities on a weekly basis will make sure you are telling your time where to go instead of your time telling you where to go, right? Because oftentimes, if we only plan on a daily basis, we're usually going to fall into planning those items in quadrants 1 and 3. Think about it in the morning when you usually get up and the first thing you do is you check email. Boom, you're right into quadrant 3 activities, right? You're in other people's agendas. And then you start writing down your to-do list, and it's just, things responding from this email or this text or this Slack message or this phone call, or this is the way that I feel. I'm not feeling that inspired, so I'm going to do these busy work tasks, right? If we only plan on a daily basis, a lot of times we're going to only end up doing the quadrants 1, 3, and 4 activities. So the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And so that's why we plan on a weekly basis. And so if you're not already doing a Sunday planning session where you take a look at your upcoming week and you tell your time where to go, I would recommend that you do that right away. Implement this right away. This could be the biggest takeaway from this training. Take 30 minutes on a Sunday to plan your week. And I'll go into depth on this in another training, but pretty much you just need to set aside some time on Sunday, or you could do this first thing Monday morning, but look at your schedule, plan out your week. So don't just plan the workday, plan strategic time also for your quadrant 2 activities, relationships, health, reflection time, God time, prayer time, those things that usually we don't put on our schedule, make sure they're on your schedule. So make sure you're planning time with family and friends. Make sure you're planning time for your personal growth and to invest in your health. If these things don't start out on your calendar, I guarantee you they're going to get squeezed out by the things that appear to be more urgent. But if you don't attend to them now, there's going to come a time where they're going to become urgent. So we have to take care of them now. So that would be my encouragement to you, would be to think through some of these non-urgent but really important activities in your life. Identify some of the practices or habits that you want to implement and then get them on your schedule. Make sure you do a weekly planning session that includes these activities that you've just identified. Because I know that as you spend time on them, you're going to see those fires start to lessen. You're going to feel more in control of your life. And you'll know that you're spending time on the things that really matter to you. So that would be my biggest thing. Go start that Sunday planning. Make sure you're planning in those important but non-urgent activities. And I hope that really helps you feel more in control of your schedule, more in control of your life, and make sure you're spending time on the things that matter. So I hope this training was helpful. Hopefully it was encouraging. And if you know someone that this training could help, please share it with them. As always, I appreciate you for being here, and live a life that you're proud of by living intentionally.